Hi, welcome to today's webinar, Training During Crisis. I'm Tim Crowley, USAT Level 3 coach. The goal today is we're going to talk about training through this period of time as endurance athletes, what we can do to help ourselves and come out on the other side as better athletes and having gone through this. I want to give you a quick background of myself. I've been doing this for a very long time. I started competing in triathlons in 1987 and have been coaching since 1991. My background is in athletic training, and I've been a coach for USA Triathlon as well as on the national team level. I've worked in webinars, I've worked in the coaching education and presenting. I've been doing this for a long time, so I'm really happy to share some of my information with you today. The overview, or what we want to get out of this session today, is something that I've been dealing with my athletes, both the triathletes and at the school that I work with high school athletes, how to work through this transition time where we may be separated from our teammates and at home, working at home, going to school at home. The role of training in our environment today, and also developing some healthy habits that can get you through this, both as an athlete and as a person. We also want to learn how to manage using the 3 C's, which is consistency, creativity, and connections. The process-oriented athlete, looking through when we don't have races on the near horizon and not sure when they're going to come back, we need to take a long-range view and how we want to structure our training so that when the races do come back, we're ready to go and we're healthy both physically and mentally. A little bit about goal setting. Having purpose in our training right now and not just going through the motions of going out and training either too little or too much. And two of the big areas I really want to address is swimming without a pool. I don't think any pools are open at this point unless people have backyard pools or swim-exes. So tubing and other tools that you can use to help you, maintain your swim form, and in some cases maybe improve your swimming. And then developing your PPC, which is your personal performance center, also known as a home gym. During this time, a lot of people are forced to do a lot of their strength work in their home. So, giving you some tools to develop your own personal fitness center, because there are going to be times, not just during this crisis, but it could be weather related, it could be injury related, it could be just logistics with your family. You may not be able to get out to do the training that you want. So having things at your disposal are very important. Okay, think of triathlon as more than just the swim, the bike, and the run. We're endurance athletes, and the root of that is endure. So I put a few simple definitions that I pulled off the computer. Okay, is to suffer patiently, remain in existence, and to last. And that really defines what we need to do in our training right now. The other thing is resiliency. The capacity to recover quickly from difficulties and toughness. Okay. Triathletes are built for this. Okay, we know how to the long range process, how to weather the storm. We can be leaders for our family and our friends in this area. Okay, we'll come through the other side. We just need to know how to navigate this. Here, talk a little bit about developing healthy habits. The 3 C's, consistency. One of the biggest things that we can do right now is maintain some consistency to whatever level that we're capable of during this time. I've had athletes have, in New York City, have treadmills delivered to their home, so if they can't go out and run, and doing the things that we need to do to develop, some level of consistency. Some athletes are trying to train a tremendous amount. They might be working from home, or they have a lot of extra time and they feel the need to add a lot of extra volume. That may or may not be a good thing. I think adding a lot of extra bike time, whether that's on the road or on the trainer, is okay. But the run volume needs to be watched carefully because you don't want to, get a running related injury right now. That's important. Control. To some level, our training right now might be one of the few things that we feel like we have control over. It seems like now we're not sure when we're going to go back to school, when we're going to go back to work, what's going to happen next week or tomorrow. Our training is that level of control, gives us that consistency in our life, and it's an anchor to get out and run, to get out and bike, and just feel good. And creativity. It's important right now that we get a little creative with our training. Okay, whether it's designing, in-home strength workouts, figuring out ways to get our swim training in, or at least maintaining some sort of swim fitness, is going to require a little bit of creativity. Some other things, other than just putting in extra miles, could be some positives that we can draw from right now, which is developing, some good habits. Over on the right-hand column, you'll see three books that I recently read on habit forming. Don't worry about need to, write these down. At the end, I'm going to, give you an option. You can get the resources that we're going to talk about today, and get all these links that you may want to check up on. But some of the developing habits that we want to have, sleep is an important one. We know that, getting the right amount of sleep and quality of sleep is good for us from recovery from a physical standpoint, but also from a mental standpoint and an emotional standpoint. Now might be a good time when we have a little bit of extra time to work on developing some really good sleep habits and sleep skills. Mobility. Many athletes just don't have time to do mobility exercises, which are going to keep them healthy and help them train correctly. Now is a good time to integrate, some mobility work several times a week, whether that's in conjunction with your strength training or somewhat separately. Take the time to start to work on these things. Your strength. Oftentimes we're swimming, biking, running, and have very busy days and work schedules. So if you have some stuff in your home, and we'll talk about some of the things that you might want to add, it's a great time to get stronger. And we know as we get older, strength training becomes more and more important for just maintaining, good health. Stress reduction. The time of a lot of stress for a lot of people and anxiety. So monitoring our stress is critical. There's a lot of things, a lot of our watches now have things such as heart rate variability and other ways that we can quantify our stress load. This is important because we know using, products such as Training Peaks or any other way of tracking our training, we can measure stress scores and the amount of workload that we're putting in when we're training. The hardest thing to know is how to get your stress outside of training, the other 23, 22 hours of the day. This is important to make sure you're not overtraining, because once we start to overtrain or we do too many miles, we're going to lower our immune system and become more susceptible to getting sick. Working remotely. One of the key things now is that developing, again, coming back to our consistency in our habits, trying to make sure that while we're working, we're taking regular breaks. For me, I found it helpful to try to maintain my normal daily working schedule, and then I try to take a break every hour to get up and move and do something. But keeping some sort of normalcy, I think, is really important during this time. Process-oriented, creating the long-term view. Basically, there's two types of athletes that I've come across in my coaching. Those who are lifestyle-oriented and those who are race-oriented. The lifestyle-oriented athlete is in it for the long haul to become a normal part of their life. And then the race-oriented athlete, they're just thinking, what's the next race I'm training for? And they want to train for that race, and then they go see what's the next race. The race-oriented athlete, I think it's a little bit difficult during this time because they're not sure when they're going to race. If they had races planned, they might be canceled. And not sure when it's all going to start up again, so they find it difficult to train at this point. Whereas a lifestyle athlete understands that races are going to come back. I'm going to be competing at some point in time. So kind of shift into a little bit more of a, extended base. For those living in cold climates, this can be hugely valuable because the weather's starting to get warmer out, and they can start to get more bike miles on the road and really develop a nice deep base that will serve them well, both later this year and in next year. Shifting goals. If you had an early season or spring goal, that's going to be shifted. Some races are moving the races to another date later in the year, and some are just being outright canceled. Hard to plan a race schedule right now when we're not sure what's going to go on. What we can do is work on contingency plans, and then hopefully this summer, maybe hopefully earlier in the summer or later in the summer, races will be back, and we'll be back in full swing. Okay, find the advantages. Working on limiters, working on your basic endurance, getting outside, putting in bike miles. These are things that we can work on right now. And again, developing that deep bike run foundation. This will be critical. So there's some positives we can find in that. And, I've found putting in some just longer, easier miles has been a lot of fun. And hopefully it'll serve me well later in the year. Okay, what I want to talk about now is training, healthy training habits. Yeah, resist the temptation to ramp up your running too fast. And as I said, this particularly pertains to the run. The bike, we can gradually build up time in the saddle, and that'll help us get stronger and build a good foundation for our cycling. But the run, you're gonna make sure you watch it and make sure you're not adding either too much frequency, too many days a week of increased running, either longer runs or increased intensity, and certainly not a combination of all three above, as this is the perfect recipe for a running-related injury. We want to build an aerobic threshold, which is different than your anaerobic threshold or lactate threshold. Your aerobic threshold is somewhere in the 70% maximal heart rate range, or the amount of the pace that you're pretty much going to be running or riding an Ironman at. This just takes time to saddle. It's really low intensity work, but this is really the foundational work. Gradually increase your miles and intensity, gradually. If you can measure them, that's easy. If we measure them, we can manage them. So having some sort of measuring, whether it's in the Training Peaks or another training platform, I think is important, just to make sure we don't start doing too much too soon. We want to get strong, and that is both general strength, which is strength training, and then specific strength. By making sure we're doing easy miles, we can still do specific strength stuff and keeping our heart rate fairly low while increasing the load on the muscles. And again, this is not running a really high heart rate or really high intensity that will lower our immune system. Paying down your sleep debt. Sleep debt is the amount of time that you accumulate if you sleep less. So typically you normally would sleep 8 hours, but you can get 7.5. You're running a 30-minute sleep debt each day. So at the end of the week, we're looking at 3 to 3.5 hours week in, week out. So it starts to accumulate. We know that this can become very detrimental for both performance and for health. So now if you can get that little bit extra sleep or take a nap in the afternoon, if you're home or working remotely, you can start to pay that down and start to increase your health. And this is going to carry over to your athletic performance as well. Okay. Minimize your high intensity sessions. I would recommend not doing any sessions at this point that are really high intensity, because two reasons. One, it lowers your immune system. And then the second thing is you don't want to come onto form or get into really good shape right now and not have any races to compete in. So doing some short, high intensity stuff, and alactic work is generally something that's lower than 20 seconds. So if you're on the bike, you could be doing, bike intervals, that's 20 seconds, maximal effort, 40 seconds rest. Running could be 100-meter strides or even 100-meter sprints, or short hills with plenty of recovery in between. This will maintain a high power output and give you a lot of that high-end stuff without putting a lot of stress on your system. And then also taking a long-range view. We want to take a long-range view of our training and think of the big picture, not just the next couple of months. I feel pretty confident that there's going to be a lot of late season racing, and I know I'm preparing my athletes to take advantage of this, once these races come back online. Okay, now I'm going to dig into one of the key elements of this presentation, which is swimming without a pool. With the pools closed, we got to come up with some options. I've always been a fan of making sure we have these options for various reasons with my athletes. So I really want to kind of share some of these with you and show you how you can use these not only now while the pools are shut, but once the pools come back as another option to maintain consistent swim training. We want to look for opportunities to improve our flexibility and our mobility. And these can be done easily by integrating simple exercises as part of a warm-up or in between intervals while we're doing our swim-specific work. We can improve our specific muscular endurance, which is the strength or the ability to maintain a strong swim stroke over a longer duration of time. And my personal belief is this is one of the key elements to open water swimming in triathlon. If you're strong enough and can maintain that, one, it gives you confidence, and two, you know that you can, if the worst case scenario, muscle your way through a swim segment of a race, no matter what the conditions are. We can use this time to strengthen our external rotators, our upper back muscles, which often become weak. This is a source of a lot of overuse injuries in triathletes. You know, the freestyle puts a stress on those muscles, as does riding in an aero position, and driving and sitting at a desk at a computer, which a lot of people are spending even more time at these days. So by integrating your rotator work, then you're going to actually, you know, create muscle balance and become a healthier swimmer. And again, we can increase frequency. Short, frequent workouts work really well. These swim workouts I'm going to talk to you about are really 15 to 20 minutes, even as short as 5 minutes can be extremely beneficial. And they can be done many days of the week. I've found doing a 10-minute swim-specific workout works really well after you get off a bike ride or off the trainer, or after you've gone and done a run. You're already coming in, you're already warmed up, boom, you can hop on and get it done. Some of the swim tools we're going to look at are ergometers. You know, which is, if you look at the top of your screen, you're going to kind of work our way down from the, you know, optimal down, you know, and working our way down. So swim ergometer, I mean, one of the benefits, it's got a power meter on there. We can look at stroke rate. It's just like, you know, the same data that you're looking at on your bike. This can also be captured, you know, using an Ant Plus on a power Garmin's or any other watch device, and it works with platforms such as Trainer Road. There's a Vasa trainer, which is a body weight, also similar like a total gym using body weight that, you know, the incline of the ramp is what causes resistance, as well as cords on the bottom. Not only is this becomes a very good swim specific tool, but it's also a really good tool as a home body strength, because you can do a lot of strength work, pushing, pulling, squatting work on this. And there are a lot of different versions of stretch cords with handles, stretch cords with paddles. And then there's a tether system. And if you're fortunate enough to live in a warm climate and have a backyard pool, tether systems can become very effective, not just during now, but any time during the year. I've got several of my athletes using these in their backyard pools right now with really good results. And some of the other, you know, other climates that are getting there, I've had some people in the past week in their backyard pool with their wetsuit on to get those workouts in. Here's a picture here on the left. This is actually one of my athletes last week who got his tether system and loved it. And then on the right, I found this online. This is actually Jodie Stimson, you know, top British triathlete in a backyard pool with her wetsuit on. So people are just finding creative ways to maintain some swim form. Okay, so we're going to go now to the video and show you some of this. Okay, I'm going to go over some of the indoor or out of pool or dryland swim options that you may have available to you. We start working down from the, you know, the most high tech down to the most low tech. So the first thing is a Vasa ergometer. The great thing about the ergometer is that it has multiple resistance levels on the door here, so you can make it easier or harder. You know, when we swim on here, it has a real water-like feel. The other good thing is that it also, you have the option to put attachments here for cuffs. So we can put cuffs on here if I want to do, you know, cuff pull with forearm resistance. And it's got a great monitor on here. And the monitor allows us to measure power output, stroke rate, and a lot of other variables. This is also Ant Plus technology, so you can export the data directly to Garmin watches, Trainer Road, and other platforms. The other is a fast trainer. The difference here is we change our resistance by either raising the level of the front, or we have power cords. We can attach different power cords to create, you know, varying types of resistance. Two ways that we can use this is we can use this with paddles or with handles. Okay, do a swim pull, the high elbow. The other option that I can have on here is to use hand paddles, okay, like we did on the ergometer. And I can, during motion swim, freestyle, I can fly. The other nice option for this is that it's a really good home strength piece of equipment, so I can sit on here. I can do do strength movements. I can pull and compress. Very versatile, very good piece of equipment. The next thing we're going to look at is stretch cords. A lot of different types of stretch cords for shoulder work, stuff like crossover symmetry, where we can do shoulder exercises. Okay, all of our rotator cuff, okay, upper back strength exercises. We can also take these same cords and we can put on paddles. And we can now also use those for swim-specific stretch cord workouts. And then the another option, lane gainer. What I like about these is they have a nice flat handle. I can slip my hand in here and it kind of locks it down. Again, we can do our pulls, and we can also use this for our our shoulder exercises. A lot of these can also be used in, get a frame attached to a door with a door jamb or hooks on the door, create a lot of valuable swim options for you. The other option, if you don't have access to any of these, is you can go to Home Depot, and they have surgical tubing in 10-foot lengths for about, I think, $13 to $15, and just tie a loop on it to hold onto your hand, and you can do any of the Dryland exercises. Okay, we're back. So now we're going to move on, talk a little bit about structuring your sessions. So again, we mentioned keep your swim sessions fairly short, 5 to 30 minutes in length is more than enough. Increase our frequency. In between our swim sets, if you're doing 1 minute to 2 minute swim pulls, we can put core work in there. We can put shoulder mobility or flexibility workouts, work on our rotator cuff exercises, strength, and even functional isometrics. These can become very valuable. Technically, when using any of these, swim options, we want to make sure we're keeping a high elbow and making sure it's a straight line from fingertips all the way to the elbow, so we're not dropping it. We're reinforcing good form. And what's called early vertical forearm, making sure the elbow is pointing up and out to the side, and that from our elbow to our fingertips is perpendicular to the floor. And then also, the speed of movement, if you think of accelerating versus monospeed, which is very common in many swimmers, is they're pulling at a constant rate of speed. What we want to do is accelerate. So if you're on something like a vasargometer, you could hear a whooshing sound as you're accelerating through the back end. This is real important and will build very specific muscle endurance. In a resource sheet that I can send out to you, I have a list of stretch cord workouts. About 10 of them on there with details of workout details as well that I can send to you. Our second main area we want to work on is developing your personal performance center, okay? Also known as your home gym. I put these little pictures on here because one is where I work, and this is where I spend my working days in a state-of-the-art facility. Yet, I do all of my strength work in my home gym at the bottom. It's just more convenient and more efficient for me. So you want to start is, what do you have? What do you have for equipment? And what do you have for space? And that's a starting point. Anything you can build out from there is a bonus. One thing I want you to think about as we go through some of these options is, what's the one thing that's going to be a game changer for you? Okay, most people, when I have athletes send me what they have at home, I'm looking for, what's the one thing we need to add that's going to change everything? And then after they get comfortable with that, we look at the following year, what's the one thing we can add to slowly build it out? Take your time building it out. If you're getting this for the long haul, if you're a lifelong athlete, then you can be comfortable with it. You don't want to get too much stuff and realize you don't need it. Square footage and versatility matters. If you have a little space, basements, garages work really well. There's so much different equipment options now that take up very little space, are worth exploring. One of the key things is making sure you have stuff that you can progressively overload. That means that you're not just adding repetitions, that you can add extra resistance, because that's really the essence of developing strength training. I put a short list of what I think are game changers in terms of developing your home performance center. First one here is a suspension trainer, or people typically call a TRX. These can be hanging from a rafter. You can get a door anchor. What I like about it, takes absolutely zero space. You can wrap it up and put it in a little bag. Great for people who do a lot of traveling for business and are in hotels. You can hook it on in a hotel room, or you bring it to the hotel gym and hook it on a bar. It can be very, very effective. Kettlebells are also, and I find the first two things I often recommend when people starting building their home gyms is to get a suspension system and then get a couple kettlebells. Okay, you don't need to get kettlebells in pairs like you do dumbbells. You can get singles, okay? And what you typically want to do is get something in a medium weight and then something that's a heavy weight that you can do goblet squats and some of the heavier exercises. So for most people, that's something like a 20 to 25 pound for your medium, and something probably like a 35 to 45 or 50 for your heavy. So you can do some really solid quality strength work. The other thing is skills slides. If you look over here in the right-hand column, little yellow discs over here, those are commercially made discs, but also they make these little furniture movers that you can get for a couple dollars at your Home Depot or Lowe's. And these make mini slide boards. So we can do single leg squats, we can do leg curls, core, and you'll see in the next video some of the simple things that you can do. Again, takes up absolutely zero space, as does the jump stretch bands, which is big band loops that come in different thicknesses to create different resistance levels. These are great. You anchor them on a bar or a pole, and you can, it's like your home cable system. You can do rows, you can pull, you can push, you can do core exercises. Very versatile, very cheap. Stability balls, most people have these in their homes. And again, these are great for doing, push-up variations. You can do leg curl variations, core exercises. These are great. And if you're really serious about that, you want to, go the full length, barbells and a squat rack become a great option. Again, I would only recommend this if you're really dedicated to something you really want. The nice thing is these squat racks become your anchor point. We can attach our suspension system to it. We can attach the bands to it. And it really becomes a focal point of your gym. And last one, the bottom corner here, we have power blocks. Sometimes people tell me, oh, I got a couple set of dumbbells. I got some 10s, some 15s. That's rather limited. If you don't want to have a full, rack of dumbbells, then I'd recommend, power blocks. So what you see here, this power block is between 5 pounds and 45 pounds on one block. So again, you get all these different weights for a lot of variety and creativity in very little space. And we're going to go to our second video. Okay, so now I'm going to show you some of the stuff that you can put into your home gym as you build your home gym. Again, starting simple, working up, always considerations, cost, space. I like things that don't take up any space. Almost versatile things with TRX or any type of suspension system. Okay, again, we can do squatting, we can do pulls, we can do presses. Very versatile, takes up no space. You can hook it on a door, you can hook it on a pole or some object in your basement or garage. Next is kettlebells. Again, kettlebells and TRX complement each other really well. You don't need to get them in pairs. A single we can do. Again, you can use this. You can use it for squatting. You can use it for hinging or swings. You can also use it for pressing. So really complements the TRX extremely well. Another great tool, slides. These are skills slides, but you can also use furniture movers that you can get at Home Depot or Lowe's for a couple bucks. And again, here we can use these for work. Okay. I can use those for leg curls. Okay. You can also use them for squatting options. Okay. Single leg squat. And the key thing is when you're home stuff, you want to make sure you're able to progress it. So some of the easy ways to progress exercises, I can hold a kettlebell on here while I'm doing a row. Okay, so I can add more resistance. I can also use a weighted vest or even just a backpack. We can put some sandbags in. Really important that we can progressively overload our exercises. Dumbbells. Instead of having a whole rack of dumbbells, these are a bit more expensive, but really save a lot of space or power blocks. I can basically move my pin. This goes up to, these go up to 45 pounds. My pin in, and then I have my dumbbell. So extremely versatile and space efficient. Stability balls. When people have these, again, we can do really good push-ups, which are really going to work the rotator cuff. I can use these also for some lower body hip lifts, leg curl progressions. A lot of good variety there. And then bands, heavy duty bands, these are jump stretch bands. They come in a loop, a big loop, different thicknesses for different resistances. And you can hook them into a door jam, you can hook them on a pole. What I like about these is we can really get some good resistance. So I can do one arm rows. I can do single arm pressing stuff. We can also do some really good standing core exercises. We can do some lifts. We can do some chops. Very versatile. Okay, now for a little bit of program recommendations with our strength stuff. First thing is keep it simple. Don't make it over involved, and keep your exercises fairly simple, limited to what you have. You'll see the buckets at the bottom. Big fan of making sure we're filling all the buckets and making sure we're not overloading one movement or one muscle group to the detriment of another one, which will cause muscle imbalances. Keep your strength sessions, whether this is at your home or even when you're going back to the gym. 30 to 40 minutes twice a week is sufficient. I found this to be, the optimal amount of time if we're focusing on quality for both age groupers and, elite pros alike. Then the program components, things you want to make sure you're including, some sort of foam rolling or flexibility work. And then of your buckets or your movements, we want to have some sort of upper body pushing. That's your push-ups, that's your chest presses. Upper body pulling, mostly horizontal pulling, one arm rows, inverted rows, pull-ups, chin-ups. Okay, squatting, both single and double leg. Hinging, that's your swings, that's your single leg deadlifts. Making sure we spend time working on the posterior chain, your hamstrings and the glutes, because these are often weak and neglected and the source of many injuries. And in the core, making sure we're doing our anti-rotational stuff, our anti-interior core, that's our slide outs, your roll outs, because this is important for a good posture, especially when we're running. And again, don't neglect the lower leg range of motion. That's kind of like single leg heel raises, calf stretches, because we want to make sure we maintain that tension, that range of motion in the lower leg, because cycling is going to tighten it up. And for a lot of athletes, especially the masters athletes, this is one of the major areas of getting injured. Okay, to summarize what we've just gone through, I want to make sure we just kind of recap here. So let me make sure you're concentrating on the 3 C's during this period of time, making sure you're staying consistent in your training, making sure you're working on the things that you have control over, and then being creative and open and trying some new things, but working with what you have. Find the positives. Use this time to become a better athlete. Work on some areas that have been neglected just because you haven't had the time. Create some new good habits, healthy habits, whether that's sleep, measuring your stress loads. Make sure you keep swimming. Do something that's swim related, flexibility, mobility, stretch cords, whatever you have access to. Make sure you do it so that when the pools open back up, we can get back in there and hopefully you haven't lost too much of your swim form. And then take some time and start to slowly now develop your personal performance center. Find that one tool, that one thing that's gonna help make you a better athlete. Okay, I know we covered a lot of stuff here. So if you have questions, feel free to email me. Email is right here, tc2coaching@gmail.com. Also my website, Facebook page, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube channel. If you're interested in getting some of the resources or more information on the resources that I talked about, then just email me. I will be developing that over the course of this weekend. And so it should be available early next week, and they can just pop an email and shoot it back to you, which can help you doing some searching. If you have questions on anything that I talked about today, feel free to, email me, get in touch with me, and I'll help you out to the best I can. It's been a pleasure, presenting this today. I hope you found some of this information valuable, and continue to be safe, continue to social distance, continue to train, and I hope to see you all soon at the races, hopefully sooner than later.